Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Risk to Readiness, Strengthening Public Sector Cybersecurity, presented by Joshua Brandt. My name is Ethan Bonacorsi, and I will be your moderator today. We will have a live Q&A session at the end, but you'll be able to ask questions during the presentation at any time by using the Q&A feature on the Zoom toolbar. With that, I'll hand it over to Devin Ball for a quick introduction.
Good afternoon, Metro West. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join today. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to learn a little bit more about LRS Security Solutions and how we have partnered with Metro West as a gold sponsor to make sure that we are one of your preferred IT and security providers. We want to make sure today that we take the time to highlight some of the things that LRS experts, such as Joshua Brandt, who you will hear from here in a minute, recommend specifically to municipal government to help them harden their security posture. So today we will give you a little bit of a highlight into some of the risks that are associated with security in your government entities and within your existing networks, and then also help prepare you to protect yourselves and make sure that you are set up for success when it comes to cybersecurity. Today will be very high level. This is interactive, so at any time, please feel free to put those questions in the chat, as Ethan said. We will make sure to take the time to answer them at the end. As he mentioned as well, this is recorded, so you will be able to view it again later, but we truly appreciate you taking the time today to learn a little bit more about LRS IT solutions and allowing us to take you from risk to readiness with your cybersecurity posture. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Joshua Brandt, our security strategist, and let him go through the content with you today.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Devin. And thank you all for joining us this evening. Hopefully the weather is pleasant where you're all located. It's unfortunately pretty stormy here right now. So I'm hoping that I make it through this without any disruptions of power or having to run to the basement or something like that. But again, it is a pleasure to be able to speak with you and talk about strengthening your cybersecurity posture. As you can imagine, cybersecurity is an extremely broad topic. We've got a fairly small window of time here today to talk through some things. So it's going to be pretty focused, very high level, not a technical presentation, but hopefully you can come away with some thoughts, some ideas on ways that you can, work within your organization to help improve your cybersecurity posture. So we'll just jump right in. Just a quick bio for myself. I am a security strategist here at LRS. Been with the company for about 7 years, but have about 20 years of experience in internal IT and security prior to moving over to LRS. Been in security for a long time, have a lot of certifications, as you can see there. And really all that means is I've been told, that means you're a veteran, I guess, but I think it just means that I'm old at this point. But been in the security space for a long time. So, I spend most of my time talking with organizations in a virtual CISO capacity, and I'll cover that more towards the end, what that means. But basically just strategizing on ways that they can improve their cybersecurity posture and hopefully prevent any type of malicious activities, data breaches, anything like that from happening, so that they're not in the news at some point, or worse, losing customer data, reputation, those types of things. So what we're going to briefly cover is, why cybersecurity is so important for municipalities. I'll quickly go through the threat landscape, which again is very broad. I mean, there are many, many threats, but we're going to touch on some of the most prevalent, the ones that have, potentially some of the most significant impacts for municipal organizations. We'll talk a little bit about strategies on ways that we can prevent or maybe contain if an event were to happen, but primarily we want to focus on prevention today. I'm going to talk about how LRS can help, some of the services that we provide, ways that we help public sector organizations, small organizations, really across the board with creating those defensive strategies, defense in depth, those layered approaches to protecting their data. And then a call to action, a few things that you can take away and be the first steps for you if you've not started on your security journey. Slide is not advancing. There we go. So A little bit about risk, and why cybersecurity should be of concern for municipalities. One of the primary reasons for this is the type of data that you maintain. So, obviously there's information about residents, um, uh, potentially private information, addresses, phone numbers, socials, those types of things that are often the targets of bad actors. You've got information about infrastructure, whether that's water, power, those types of things that are critical for the residents of your communities. Financial data often is a target, right? So understanding what monies are available. Most, or I shouldn't say most, but a lot of security events are financially motivated. So, you know, the awareness of what you have available, sources of funds, those kinds of things can be um, attractive to bad actors who are preying on maybe vulnerable victims. Obviously, some bad actors are looking solely to be disruptive. Maybe they don't have financial motives. Maybe it's just want to see how much they can do to cause disruption and get notoriety for themselves, those types of things. So being the kind of holders of the water utilities and other critical infrastructure services and public safety can be an alluring target for some bad actors. And then um, finally, there is this perception that smaller organizations, smaller entities, municipalities are going to be more vulnerable. They don't have the funds to procure some of the technology, the security controls and things that larger organizations may have at their disposal. So that makes them a larger target. So some of the key threats, I just want to go through a few. I've got 5 here. They're probably the ones that you most often hear about when you hear something in the news or you see that an organization is, their systems are unavailable or that they've had some type of an event. The most prevalent today is ransomware. For anyone that might not be familiar with ransomware, that's simply getting into your system. I mean, that can be like an entire network, a bunch of systems and servers, and locking those and making them inaccessible without a key. And that key then is held for ransom. And, you have to pay us X amount of money before we will give you the key to unlock your data. But that can even be as narrowed down to a workstation, right? Your own PC or your home PC can be targeted by ransomware. We most often hear about it in the business world or larger scale, but it can be, all the way down to an individual entity as well. Phishing is a method to entice a user to click on something that is malicious in nature. So oftentimes, this is going to be an email or a text message or some communication that's conveying a sense of urgency, right? You have a package that you need to claim, or time is running out to collect this money, or the text phishing I've been getting a lot here in Illinois is the tolls, right? That you've got unpaid tolls and you're going to have some consequence if you don't pay the toll in some short amount of time. And generally, those have a link. Those links are either trying to steal credentials from you or install some sort of malicious software. So phishing is often a method to deploy ransomware. Data breaches are just providing unauthorized access to your data. Can be achieved through phishing a lot of times. That's how they get the credentials. A bad actor would get your username or password from a phishing attempt that might give them access to data that has your residents' information, personal information, those types of things. Denial of service is overwhelming systems so that they can't serve their business purpose. And actually, there was one of these just last week that made the national news. Have you heard about it? Twitter, I guess, or formerly known as Twitter, now X, had a denial of service attack that took their services down for several hours. And it was literally thousands and thousands of devices that were targeting their systems to the point that they couldn't keep up with the requests. So a denial of service attack can be carried out from a public perspective in the case of X. So their public services that they offer their clients are disrupted, or it can be internal. So if you have an internal network overloading your internal servers so that your employees can't do their work, or services that you host internally are unavailable, can be equally as disruptive for you. So they can take two shapes, whether internal or external. And then finally, there are vendor risks. And these are the ones that are oftentimes referred to as third party or supply chain risks, where upstream to your organization, someone that provides you a critical resource, or in the manufacturing world, it's components for the things that you build. If they have some type of event that affects your ability to produce, or whether that's parts that you manufacture or services that you provide to your residents or what have you, those are all third-party supply risks. And oftentimes you have those upstream and downstream. So you have to kind of consider your suppliers and then also the people that you supply if you're moving down that chain. So these are the main types of threats that we see in your sector that we really want to focus on today. As far as why you're targeted, I mentioned this earlier, but a smaller budget for cybersecurity is typically kind of the biggest attractant for bad actors, right? They know that small organizations just don't have the budget, and they can't invest in as robust of security tools. They're often perceived as being less secure because of that. Now, there are a lot of things that we can do to increase security posture without spending a lot of money. And we're going to talk about that here as we move through the presentation. But the perception is that because you're smaller, you're not going to be as secure. And again, you provide critical services. So bad actors who are looking to make a name for themselves, they're looking to have financial gain by significant impacts to large groups of the population, then the municipalities make an attractive target for them. So just a little information I wanted to provide on data breaches that really are focused on public sector. We talked about data breaches being one of those main types of attacks, behind ransomware or phishing or what have you. The 2023 data breach report by Verizon said that about 20% of all of their recorded incidents. And that's one thing that we have to bear in mind, that when you look at data about cybersecurity events, a lot of events are never reported just because of privacy issues, regulations, maybe just a fear of losing customer confidence or whatever. So out of the ones that are reported, about 20% of the incidents, so just something happening, and 11% of data actually being removed from the organization, a breach of data, those were tied to the public sector. So not necessarily municipalities, but just the public sector in general is a very large target. Most often what's being targeted are misconfigurations of systems. We'll get into that at the end, but that's something that we see as we work with customers, that oftentimes it's simply not understanding an appropriate way to configure the security tools you have in place. Maybe just lack of awareness, or sometimes it's even the recommendations provided by a vendor may not be the best for your situation. So misconfigurations are a leading cause of security issues. Sending emails to the wrong recipient and publishing sensitive information online are probably less frequent in our experience. Data breaches are expensive, though. As you can see here, IBM's 2023 cost of a data breach report said that for organizations of 500 or fewer, the average cost was 3.31 million. I'm going to dig into that in a minute and just kind of explain how that could be. I mean, it seems like an extremely large number for a small organization, but the costs really do ratchet up very quickly. And finally, just a note that the CISA.gov had published saying that municipalities are at risk for cyber intrusions, basically just pointing out that there's a lot of information there that bad actors are looking for. So CISA and Department of Homeland Security are some of the primary federal cybersecurity resources that you can reach out to and provide good information and guidance on strengthening your cybersecurity posture. So, that's pretty alarming, I guess, that they have that kind of a statement that municipalities are definitely being targeted. So quickly on the operational disruptions that are potentially possible, water and sewer systems, police and fire communications. Just in the last couple of years, there have been some ransomware events that have occurred where 911 services were impacted. So, something like that could be extremely devastating to an organization or to a municipal organization. And especially when you think about something like a bad actor trying to deploy that type of an attack when maybe there was a significant event going on. If they knew that there was a large weather event or natural disaster of some type, and then, were able to knock out water and communication systems for first responders. I mean, that could, really escalate into a bad situation very quickly. Similarly, your payment systems, for taxes and permits, where you are receiving financial information or actual money electronically from residents, having those impacted could be extremely disruptive to your organizations, and also voting. Obviously, it's been a topic for the last 8 years or so, improving voting security and how we can make that a controlled and reliable operation for residents. So from a financial perspective, I'd mentioned that IBM said the average cost of a breach was about $3.3 million. So the average ransomware payment right now is in excess of $1 million. And I'm going to mention a few examples here that we've recently been going through. We help organizations with breach response, and ransomware obviously is one of the types of events that we help out with. I just finished, well, actually, it's not even finished. It's still ongoing, but have been working in the last month with an organization who had a ransomware event. A fairly small amount of data was actually breached, but there was encryption that occurred, and a ransom was requested by the bad actors, and it was $1.2 million for a pretty insignificant amount of data, really, when you think about the amount of data that they had overall as an organization. The recovery and system restoration, that's what LRS was brought in to help them with. Detection, containment, eradication, and business resumption. So, like I mentioned, we spent about a month in the really heavy work and helping them get back online. And, just in that month, we had about 1,000 hours of services. So, that's a lot of cost in those recovery efforts to get them back into business operation. And then there's the fines and regulatory compliance issues or breaches of contract or SLA with customers. So those costs also compound. So when you start to add all those things together, that $3.3 million average cost, we can get there pretty quickly. So from a municipality perspective, sorry, I can't speak. The erosion of public trust is probably one of the bigger issues for you. I mean, your residents are going to lose confidence in your abilities, potentially taking legal action against you, and those things on top of those fees and fines, the ransom itself can really be devastating to your organization. So we've talked about all the bad things that could happen and why they might happen. So what can we start to do? What can be our mitigating strategies to try to control these things? Well, first and foremost is just making your employees aware, making sure that they understand the basics about cybersecurity. Larger organizations are probably going to have training solutions, learning management systems where they can push out training to employees. But if you don't have that luxury, there's a lot of content available online that's freely available, free to use, pretty easy to form up a training document or just a few pages that you could send out, maybe have a conference call, a Teams or Zoom call with your employees, at least once a year, but talk about some of these critical things about how to identify those phishing emails, right? Look for that sense of urgency, trying to appeal to your humanity, right? We need your donations for this thing. I mean, those are the types of tactics that bad actors will employ through phishing. So helping them identify those and looking for misspellings or strange fonts or any of those types of things can be very beneficial. Also educating about passwords, using long passwords, password managers if possible, so we can keep them complex and not sharing them. That's really the hygienic part, is not using the same password over and over, and especially between systems that you work with and your personal systems. And then finally, reporting suspicious activities. Sometimes there's some embarrassment or shame or, questioning, oh, I don't know this, should I say something? I clicked on this, what should I do? Um, you know, we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable to report anything that looks suspicious, anything that looks out of the ordinary, whether that's to their supervisor or to an IT provider that you may outsource, or even to local law enforcement. I mean, cybersecurity professionals are always willing to take a look. We want to make sure that we help strengthen the overall security of our communities. So don't, we want to ensure that people aren't afraid to send those out and make others aware when something looks suspicious. So a few things here from a cyber resilience perspective. Conducting regular risk assessments. That is really what we at LRS have focused in on, and we really encourage our clients do regular assessments. There are many types of security assessments that can be performed. It can be based upon various security frameworks. There are different organizations that have their own. There are different industries that have their own. Some types of assessments are, can you break in? Can you successfully get into our environment? That's called a penetration test. We have developed our own risk assessment I'm going to talk about in a little bit that we feel like is a really good starting point, or really it just pairs nicely with any type of security assessment. But the bottom line is you don't know what you don't know if you're not conducting risk assessments. You need to do this to understand where your gaps are, to understand your full security posture, have a managed, or not a managed, but a security services provider do risk assessments for you so you know where you have gaps. Backups and test restoration, extremely important, especially from a ransomware perspective. If you're outsourcing your IT services, something I would strongly encourage is to request to see your test restores. Ensure that they are restoring your data, and not only that it was successfully restored in their tests, but also understand the amount of time it took to restore it. if you are in a situation, you've a realized event of some type, and you find out that it takes 3 days to restore your data, that's going to be very, very impactful. So, I would encourage you right now, if you're using a third party to do this, make sure that they are backing up your systems, obviously, first and foremost, but they're also testing the restores, and they know that process and can help you through that if a situation were to arise. And then finally, keeping your systems patched and updated. So any kind of technology device, over time, the software, there are weaknesses that are identified. Bad actors are continuously trying to break into things. So all types of technology devices need to be updated. You probably see this on your cell phones. You get a request from Apple to do an iOS update on your phone. A lot of times that's features, but also it's often security updates. So staying on top of those patches is extremely important for keeping your security posture at the highest level possible. Again, work with managed security services providers. There are a lot of things to be aware of. It's very challenging for even someone who's been in IT for a long time to have a full grasp of all the risks and threat actors and the required processes for securing a technology environment. So, that's why IT and cybersecurity are often, two separate processes. Those are it's really two skill sets. So, work with organizations like LRS. We want to be that partner for you to help you get a handle, understand your security weaknesses, and put together a plan for protection and ensuring that you don't have any of these breaches or realized events in the future. Also reach out to your law enforcement. They're very willing to help out. A lot of times they have various programs at no cost that you can take advantage of. So, a few key takeaways here. As we mentioned, the risks are real, and they're getting larger for municipalities. There are a few things that you can do right away that will help protect your organization and ensure that your services are available for your community members. So I want to tie this into just some of the solutions that LRS offers and how we help our customers deal with these types of events and proactively protecting against them. We've been doing this a long time, about 25 years in security and compliance. So, just understanding that, we are pretty seasoned. We've worked in a lot of types of public sector organizations. We work with healthcare and education and state, local, city, or state, local, federal government. We've kind of worked with the full spectrum of industries and have a good handle on the types of security risks that are prevalent in each of them. So this is a list of items that we generally recommend for any organization for protecting against breaches. Really, I want to focus on the top one. Again, I talked about conducting a risk assessment earlier. It's something that we really stress at LRS. We've built our own security assessment we call a cyber risk analysis that I'm going to dive into here in just a moment. These other items, I'm not going to talk through these, but just kind of keep them in the back of your mind, memorize this list, and I will touch on them just briefly here in a moment. So the cyber risk analysis, as I mentioned, really what we've done is build an assessment that focuses on 3 areas that are very common in any type of organization. Active Directory being a repository of information about people. Usually it has names and addresses and contact info, things that can be sensitive, but also very attractive to bad actors. It focuses on firewalls, which are the devices that protect the known good. So known good systems, known good data, known good users from those that we don't trust, aren't known good. So the public internet generally. Those devices are that dividing line. And then, as I'd mentioned, with the patching, all all technology devices have vulnerabilities that need to be fixed. And it's important that we evaluate all the devices in our environment to see if there's anything there that could be preyed upon by bad actors. So looking at those three things, because they're very common in any organization, really what we're looking for are the things that are commonly missed, common errors, omissions, hygiene issues, and really anything that can be exploited by bad actors. So we've taken our team that does those penetration tests I was mentioning earlier, where their goal, they like to try to break into customers' environment. We asked them to help us design this assessment and focus on the things that they would be looking for. So that's what this list is. It's relevant to any size organization, any sector really, but it can be applied to you regardless if you've got five members or 5,000. In addition to that, one of the key services that we offer is our virtual CISO. And CISO, for those who may not be aware, is a Chief Information Security Officer. So really, it's just the person responsible in large organizations for managing the security posture, the roadmap, and ensuring that the security program, the tools, the controls are all built and with a methodology, aligning to some type of framework, and ensuring that the money spent on them is effective, right? That we can prove that our defense posture is effective. We haven't had any types of incidents, and here's why. So that's what a CISO does for larger organizations. And we at LRS have built a virtual CISO program so we can offer that type of capability to smaller organizations that couldn't necessarily afford to have that role on their bench. So we can come in and help assess your risks and put together those plans, build policies and standards, things that are very critical to ensuring success in cybersecurity posture. So, some of the benefits to that, obviously, cost savings. You don't have to have a full-time person on staff. It can be very compressed, work within your budget to achieve what's necessary for you and your organization. It's very flexible. We've been doing this a long time. We mentioned earlier we've got a lot of certifications, myself and the rest of the team on, and have seen a lot of different things. So bringing that experiential knowledge into your organization can be very valuable in helping you build out an effective security program. And then just the peace of mind, right? That you've got someone that's on your team effectively who is helping you do this, and that it just takes a little of that stress off of you, the what ifs, and are we doing the right things? Do we have enough controls? That's what the virtual CISO is going to help you determine. So wrapping it up here, just a quick call to action. Again, schedule a security risk assessment. We would love to work with you on a cyber risk analysis, analyzing those three key areas that we talked about that are so often targeted by bad actors. There is some investment in training and defenses that are necessary, but one of our goals is always to help find ways that we can do that with tools you may already own, or without making a significant investment. We're going to do that to the best of our ability, but some tools are necessary to provide the level of defense that you need. And then finally, fostering partnerships with security experts. We can do that through the virtual CISO, with LRS. Like I mentioned, Department of Homeland Security and CISA also offer great services to organizations, and have a lot of tools and information available at no charge that you should take advantage of if you can. So those are the quick call to action. Again, this was a quick run through. It's a very broad topic, but would certainly love to dig into this further. And with that, I'm going to move into the Q&A. I think we're right at our time here, so I don't know if we had any questions come in or not.
Josh, I know one thing that came through earlier was what would you suggest be the first next steps now for those that are on the call or those that watch the recording. If they're wanting to have a consultation, have a conversation about where they should start, what would you recommend be their first steps in outreach?
Yeah, I mean, certainly reach out to myself, to Amy, Devin, and generally that the cyber risk analysis is the great place to start. Because it is so applicable, and it is so critical, the things that we're looking at there, those common errors, omissions, misconfigurations that are preyed upon by bad actors, getting those addressed early on can really make a huge dent in your overall attack posture, or your attack surface. So that's what we want to achieve, is minimizing those points of entry, points of attack, the ways that bad actors could get a foothold in your environment. And that's really what we focus on there. It's a very lightweight engagement. It doesn't take a lot of resources from your team. We can, if you've got your own IT organization, a contract organization, we can work with them. So it really is a good fit for any organization.
You unknowingly answered the second question, Josh, which was, what if we already use a third-party vendor? How do you guys play together? So
Yep.
you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. We run into that frequently. We have no issues working with other partners, other organizations, whether they're strictly IT or if they provide some type of cybersecurity services for you. We don't have any issues with that at all. We'll partner with them, share information that you would like for us to share, and work collaboratively to go through mitigation, remediation, whatever the outcomes of the assessment are. We're happy to work through those.
All right. Well, with no other questions in the chat, I want to thank Josh for the presentation today. That was great. I want to thank Devin for her insights as well. There will be a recording that can be sent upon request. And with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.